Hey everybody, welcome to the season finale of Jono Lived There, the fantastic podcast where I, someone that's never lived outside of California, interviews my most traveled friend, Jonathan Chan. Jonathan, are you excited about this last episode that we're going to do together?
Sí, por supuesto. Yes, I am. And actually a bit sad because it's the last one. But I don't believe it's going to be the last of the last because probably just going
No,
to be the
I plan
last
to
for
never
this one.
talk to you after we finish this episode, actually.
And you know what? I'll believe you, being as straight up as you are, man. You haven't changed since day one, motherfucker. No.
I got a lot more foreigners that I had to interview after we finish the season finale here.
And just on the side, our friend Gary, I think I told you about this, right? He actually messaged me, screenshot this picture of him watching our Singapore episode. And he actually said that, yeah, you just ditched us, right? You ditched me and Andrew. And I'm like, oh, no, it's all right. Joseph's coming for you next. Don't worry. That's when I texted you about it.
Yeah, Gary's an interesting dude. He's lived in a lot of different countries as well, and it'd be
Yeah, it'd
interesting
be
to
great
see his
to.
perspective. So today we're going to be talking about the country that Jonathan is currently living in, and he's been living there for the last 7 or 8 months. Is that right? And that country is the one and only longest country in the world, Chile. So out of all the South American countries that you could have went to, like why did you choose Chile?
So it goes back to a few years ago when this plan to come to Chile really concretely became, something that I wanted to do, right? I had my students from South America in my class, from Colombia, from uh, where else, from Chile, of course, there was even more from Venezuela and Argentina as well, you know. And from all of them, the Chileans really were the ones that kind of piqued my curiosity the most, being the most vibrant and and warm and just interesting, I guess, in that sense. And so when they talked to me about the country, obviously, then it really kind of got me focused on this project. And I then got to learn through them that they have this this crazy diverse landscape, scenery in the country, right? So um, and I think that was just enough really for me to go. And also, yes, by the way, yeah, the main thing really was that they proud of speaking the fastest version of Spanish, and also the most like difficult to understand Spanish with all kinds of slang and and it's almost like their own sort of dialect. So that again, I think really just won me over.
So out
And
of all the South American countries, Chile would be like the most advanced class to really master the language. You have to speak at a very sensational
them,
speed.
according to them, that's what they told me, right? So that just got me, sold, I guess. I'm like, yep, challenge accepted. I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna figure out what the hell you guys actually know as Spanish, right? And so yeah, and so that with the language being the main goal, to the scenery, being the longest country in the world, right? Like you said, and in fact that there were just a bunch of you know seemingly vibrant and exciting and fun people. So okay, I thought yeah, that was enough. And also, the last thing was that there are also quite a lot of Chileans actually in New Zealand before I forget, because um, they're even more nowadays with their working holiday visa programs between our countries. But even before that, like quite a lot of them actually have come to settle in New Zealand. So um, that kind of just got me aware of this tie, I think, that we have across the Pacific.
So you ended up in Chile because of some people, of some students that you met teaching English. Is that right?
Started teaching English in New Zealand. Because right now it's even more so the destination to learn English. New Zealand, Australia, compared to I guess what was maybe more renowned in the past, the UK, the US, especially for people from South America, right? Because of proximity and also mainly the cost, right? Well,
Cost
so they
of living.
find out that quite a bit of a cost to to live in New Zealand. But anyways, that's been like that now. So ever more so, South Americans are abound in New Zealand.
So
So
like
I thought
wealthy South American families send their kids to English-speaking countries to so they can learn English.
that is the case. Um,
So you end up in Chile at the beginning of 2020, right? Like when did you end up there?
Arrived early March, and then just about a week later, boom, COVID alert, everyone.
You arrived in Chile early March, and that was like right when the whole COVID explosion happened.
That was it. And so it's been one of, yeah, a hell of an experience, I guess, to say the least. Living through the pandemic. I mean, just like anyone else really in their lives. So I don't think I am any special. But at the same time, for someone coming in to want to see what life is normally like, anyways, what life has been like, and all its, you know, not splendor, but in all its nuances, right? Yeah, like I said, it's been an interesting, um, you know, testing experience, I guess. But then again, uh, me personally, I can't complain. Honestly, I've been able to keep healthy and keep safe, keep indoors, even though it went for a few months. um, it's been all right. So yeah.
So you arrived in Chile. Did you get to see a lot of things before in that 1 week before COVID happened, or the lockdown happened as soon as you get there?
I think I've only already started, going out and exploring the city, different neighborhoods, talking to people, and all that. I think about a month and a half ago, because the lockdown came into effect about like a week after my arrival, right? Uh, and although I guess it wasn't, I think, formally sort of imposed, just because I was living in a different neighborhood at the time, right? So that means that, like, it was essentially under lockdown, but where I was, it didn't go in until a few weeks later. So that means that I still went out to do pretty much just admin stuff. And that's all I really did. So I didn't actually really go and sightsee or anything. I just went out to downtown, just to do admin stuff, and that was it. Um, and then otherwise, the whole time, like for the good 4 months or so, I was just pretty much going out to get groceries, and well, I'm walking around, like walking around sort of my neighborhood when I could, but apart from that, but nah, that was it.
So
So
before you made your trip, was COVID in the news already?
man, I mean, I think the whole world sort of was, well, apart from probably, I mean, the epicenter of Wuhan, I think the whole world was probably on the same page when the WHO announced it in sort of early March, right, or mid March. Um, so before that, no, I mean, when I arrived, yes, we all knew about the existence of COVID. So, they made us sign a declaration, an affidavit, saying, oh, yeah, we're healthy, we're good, we're safe. And that, of course, if we had any symptoms, we call the healthline and all that stuff. And that was all good. But then I think about the same time, like the first case, sorry, and then the first few cases after that were detected, in Chile, coming from obviously overseas as well. So people who came from the richer neighborhoods, they traveled back from overseas, they got it, and then yeah, and then that just sounded off the alarm bells, and yeah, and then I just went from there ever since. So again, yeah, long story short, I was just kind of indoors pretty much the whole time, keeping up with what was going on for good 4 or 5 months, going out only when necessary, and then yeah, and then finally, I was able to actually go out without any proper reason and just get to know the city and meet people more, talk to them a little bit when I could. Yeah, and,
So you
it's
arrive in
getting better
Chile.
slowly but surely.
You arrive in Chile, and then like 1 week later, you're staying at an Airbnb, right?
Yeah, so I stayed for about 3.5, almost 4 months in my first Airbnb. It was sort of an apartment in a sort of more middle class neighborhood, and then for the next almost 4 months now, yeah, I moved to another apartment, downtown, which was more central, and yeah, so that was it. It has been,
So
yeah.
the only like so during like 1 week later, the lockdown happens, and you're basically stuck at the Airbnb. Except so the only thing you're allowed to do is go out to get groceries. Is that right?
There are, obviously just essential needs that were allowed through a permit that you had to, get before you could go out. You get it online immediately, or obviously go to the police station. But most people just, got it online, and you had a limit of 2 per week. So you got to, I think probably the same as you guys, go out to get, supermarket groceries and stuff. well, I mean groceries, and or go to the bank, for example, you know, go and let's say deliver, groceries or just materials, things to, let's say if you had any parents, that were living in retirement homes, for example, or even just on their own, just specific needs like that. And then of course, if those who are working in essential services were allowed to continue working. So same as you guys probably, right? Pharmacy workers, supermarket
Uh,
employees.
in America, we don't really use permits. You're allowed to go out, but in San Francisco specifically, if you're indoors anywhere, you need to wear a mask. But there really wasn't any permit system, so that's kind of interesting. Is the permit system like just a government website, like
And
COVIDpass.com or something? Or how's that work?
yeah, it was that. It was that. Was still the virtual police, station sort of website. But man, it was all kind of a shambles to be honest when it all started because that obviously got introduced, right? But then when that got introduced, the problems with the site, it's obviously overloaded, and they still had a hard time getting people to actually follow, the rules and do as told because it's one thing, right, to say that in principle, to enforce that, but then it's a whole other thing to actually, have it, done in practice, right? Where most people, or not all people, or everyone sort of just follows that requirement. So it took time, and then of course, not just because of the rules, but mainly because of just, poverty, to be honest, on how, this crisis, I think, not just in Chile, but really all the world really showed us the deep inequalities that we have, right, between, you know, different classes, right? So a lot of people here still go day by day, selling things on the street, for example, to get by, working these menial jobs, right? Um, so a lot of people actually couldn't really afford to just stay home, and stay put, right?
Like, so
So
if you are like a street guy, like selling, let's say, I don't know, like baked goods on the street, do you need a permit every day to do that?
it's actually like allowed, and so it's kind of, the government, I guess, kind of closes an eye on the phenomena of street sales, right? Um, so no, so technically they weren't allowed to do that, but you know, uh, that still went on. So
They're running
it was
underground bakeries to sell street stuff.
um, no, I think these businesses were later on allowed to open, but then, or I'm not sure exactly when they were allowed to open, but then of course they had to have all their requirements set, right? So you know what was it, alcohol sort of gel at the entrance, and like they had their sort of plastic film set up to prevent any kind of contagion, and then limiting people, or a number of people, I guess, in their shop and everything, and all kinds of EPP, I guess, was sort of set up properly, and so yeah. But at the same time, I think it was mainly that, just people not following just because they couldn't, or they didn't take it seriously enough. And so that's why I think it took a long time for us to really actually get a handle on the virus here. I mean, get sort of on top of it.
So
And so,
so
yeah.
let's go back into like this the permit system, because I think this is really interesting. I think a lot of Americans don't understand this. So you go on the police website, and then you type in your name, and then you say grocery store or something, and then you can only go to the grocery store for an hour or something. How's that work?
Choose your option. So yeah, the most common one would be to get your necessities, right? So your groceries, or you go to the pharmacy or the doctor, for example, or you go to the bank, um, stuff like that. And so you type in your details, yep, and then you type in obviously your address and where you're going, and then you hit enter, right? And then later on, so yeah, it gets like produced automatically and immediately, right? But it gives you guys like time limit of, say, I don't know, it could be 3 hours for grocery shopping, could be half an hour for walking a dog, for example. um, you know, and so you got a time limit there, and you have it on your phone. Of course, that also, by the way, also reveal a huge gap, in technology, because a lot of people here, especially the elderly, I'd say, and obviously the poorest population, they don't have internet. So, that was also a big problem, right? People were saying, "Oh, just do everything online," but a lot of people didn't know how to or couldn't, So you still see a lot, you still saw a lot of lines. You still see them now, actually, a lot of lines outside, I guess governmental institutions or banks, and um, and
So
it's
you're in
and
a major city in Chile though. You're in the capital, right? Santiago. And
that's
the
true.
internet infrastructure isn't available to everybody yet.
And that's the thing that I think, yeah, probably stick with me the most after I leave is that, yeah, you would expect that, but it's still highly sort of stratified in terms of the access to, to not just internet really, to, to, just to sort of services, to, well, in normal times, I guess also even like say, better infrastructure or worse, education as well in health, it's kind of honestly really enough like the States in a sense where everything's just so I guess unequal from neighborhood to neighborhood, right? And how everything's just privatized. Because if you were to go back in history for a little bit, for a good like yeah 30 seconds right on his history is that back then the economists, right, that actually ended up becoming part of the government, um, I guess those who really decided the sort of financial model that Chile was going to take, they actually went to Chicago to study, and so then they were kind of heralded the Chicago boys when they came back to Chile.
Wait,
And so
what
then
year
they
was
adopted
this?
70s, I believe, and then they adopted the exact neoliberal model that you guys had in the States, and so
Which is poor
that's why
neighborhoods
yeah
have
when I
bad schools and rich neighborhoods have good schools.
and so you see that man, even in Chile itself, they probably they still are struggling to I think get um to terms with that idea that you could really live in two different worlds, or many different worlds in the same country, depending on like how you guys are, right? Where you are from, where you grew up, um, and the kinds of you know infrastructure and services that you enjoy or not, I guess, depending on that. So, and then obviously the people that you then would associate with and the opportunities that would be open to you. It's also starkly different neighborhood to neighborhood. So, but then
So
yeah,
the
I mean, I don't
income
think that's
disparity is pretty high in Chile. But would you say a
so. What's
majority of the people probably are not doing as well? Like it'd be like a couple rich people versus a lot of poor people.
I mean, so most of the country are still yeah not. Um, I mean, it's hard to generalize because yes, at the same time, they are developing country like any other, and although the facade is that they apparently are the most developed, let's say, in South America, it is true that once you kind of go past that, though, yeah, there's still a huge, class of people that are living, I guess, quite decent, quite modestly, right? Um, so yes, and it's obviously I think one of the most unequal nations, if not the most. I can't, I don't know, I don't know, sort of don't want to throw out huge generalizations, but I think from what I read, from what I learned, though, yeah, it's pretty unequal in Chile. Um, yes,
So if you have a lot of money in Chile though, you could still send your kid to a good school, but it's going to be a private school, right? It's not a public school.
yeah. So you have private, you have semi-private, and you have public, and so yeah, that is the case. That is true. Yeah, if you have the means, life is gonna be okay. Life is gonna be good. You can probably afford to, yeah, live in your bubble, right, and get by, and I guess be able to sort of, you know, belong to this elite class where, poverty doesn't really kind of ever cross you. You don't ever go into those parts of the population, right? So that interesting enough was what happened with with this virus. Our ex-health minister who stepped down, he was quite controversial already sometimes with what he said. But there was, I think the tipping point was when he came on TV and he kind of said, "When yeah, I'm sorry to say this in this way, but I did not realize, I wasn't aware that there was many deep-seated problems with poverty in Chile," and he got obviously a lot of shit for that. Because he's talking about how it was tough for people to let's say to keep their social distance at homes when their homes were so overcrowded already.
Yeah, so the health minister is a pretty rich dude, I'm assuming.
The political class are all the elite class pretty much, and that also explained what happened last year in October, right, when they had this social unrest. I'm sure, I don't know if you guys heard about it. Um, yeah, it got triggered by the rise in metro ticket prices. So that pretty much was the straw that broke the camel's back. So it was huge. A huge revolt and protest, biggest one since the dictatorship days, um, back in the 80s, 90s. So yeah.
So there definitely seems like it'd be like in most countries, the poorer class of people would be a higher number than the richer class of people. So why are the policies still not great for poor people in Chile? Is it because like only the ruling rich class is the politicians? Are there not enough representatives that actually lived in like a poor neighborhood growing up?
I mean, it's roughly like that. Yeah. So the political class is still made up of these so-called elites, right, who've had best education and all that, and and so there's this disconnect, and I think it definitely showed right with the, the uprising, the unrest, in October last year to now, with the virus, and so yeah, it's pretty much just lack of um representation. I think more of a a real concern, I guess, that we kind of see concrete changes, being applied to sort of even up those differences. But having said that, I mean, really just like any other developing country with this sort of model, they're still moving forward, right? I think the middle class, I think over sort of the longest period of time, they will still probably be, you know, slowly but surely getting better, but I guess not fast enough, for most people. So
So there
um,
is a democracy there. Like normal people vote, right?
yeah. And fun fact, I
But
mean,
they
they're going
vote
to
for
vote.
people that
So,
are elite. They vote for the people that are like not very aware of their problems.
oh, well, I guess you could say that. I mean, um, I I guess you could say that, but at the same time, it is tough though, huh? To be able to, I think, not just get into politics, but then also be able to affect, sort of real sustainable change when you are still the minority, I guess. But again, going away from deep, I guess, generalizations, they are still, I think, taking proper steps. Like, so, what happened after the unrest was that they had this referendum, this referendum that was suggested to change the constitution, right? So the vote is coming up actually, and it was supposed to be in April back then, March or April, I forgot, but now it's going to be in October now, and so it's going to be huge. um,
What are they
so
changing
then
about the Constitution?
trying to update it, I think, to I guess make it more, you know, I think more current and more sort of fairer to take into account, I guess, this exact, representation problems and sort of broad inequality, I would say. Uh, yeah, I'm
Are
not
they
too
like
sure of what.
America and they're using like a really old Constitution?
Yes, last one. Oh man, I should know this, but I think this one was written in the early 1900s, I believe, because they had the first one way back in like 18 uh 20 or 30 or something. Because I mean, obviously they had a few attempts when they were getting the independence, right, during the whole process, and I think then they actually got set on the first proper one, I think, in like 1833, if I'm not mistaken, and then that lasted, I think, until the early 90s. So I think, yeah, the current constitution is still from that point in time, and so they're trying to obviously change that up. And along with those changes, most recently they announced that they were going to limit, have term limits, in place for politicians. So yeah, so these are just a few changes that have come into place, and I guess working their way to to lead to, I don't know, hopefully a fair society, right? I mean,
I mean, that
broadly
does sound
speaking.
like more fair. And even though they're using an old Constitution, like the American Constitution is like from 1776, so America's got way more age on Chile. But who writes the new Constitution? Is it just like the politicians that are currently in office?
Question, right? That's a good question.
Because
I
if America wrote a new constitution, I would not trust the current members of Congress to write it because they're very self-serving. Like you would have to get like neutral, I don't know, professors or something to write the Constitution.
uh, I don't know which class of jurists would have to be sort of selected and take care of that. But yeah, I guess we'll have to keep track of that, and I'll look into that to see yeah who actually wrote. I don't know if they haven't even started talking about it yet because of course they have to vote first to see if they're going to change it or not, and then I guess we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to like who gets the responsibility of writing a constitution, because if it's just like literally all your senators or all your representatives, they're obviously part of the richer class, so they probably wouldn't write a constitution that would be that great for the more struggling people.
Although I don't know who else. I guess if you don't have them be in charge of that, I guess it's yeah, it's an interesting question. Um, I don't think I have the answer to that. But hey, my suggestion would be, I guess, to get sort of an equal, I guess, proportion, right? Which I guess would not be government per se, but more so, I don't know, hopefully a member of each ruling, each party, I guess, each constituent, you know, party member, and then sort of get them to equally, uh, give their input, and then probably get like the most, yeah, like you said, most neutral lawyer or something, or just a bunch of lawyers to then actually draft it up and and then
I think
submit it
there
to
should just be
vote.
a Chilean Twitter poll, and it has a bunch of different rules there, and then they let the citizens decide how many terms each representative can have and stuff in the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, it's have to go through, the citizens vote. I think. Hold on, just they're gonna vote, and it's probably gonna be a yes and a approve to change it, and then later on, yeah, I think I have to read more about that to see what happens next day. Yeah,
I
but
always
it's
wonder
true
what
that
would happen if like the citizens could just vote on every law instead of the representative, and it make it a really easy American Idol style vote where it's like instantaneous.
well then, well, I think according to political science, I think the pros and cons to that, right? Isn't it? Like how good things that you get more is like direct democracy, so to speak, but the bad side is that um, it's what was it the law of the there's a name for that. Well, I think the tyranny it's tyranny of the masses, isn't it? Where most people might
Tyranny of
just be equally informed or just not make the most sound decision, right? And just because the majority they get their way, so
well,
which
I would get a really smart person to write the law, and then like like a professor or like someone that has a lot of experience writing laws, and then the citizens can vote on it. That's how I would do it if I was president of Chile. If you're the president of Chile and you're listening, contact me. I'll help you write the constitution.
Pinera, who actually is a Harvard graduate and a millionaire.
What a
So
coincidence!
there you go. Yeah,
A
you
politician with a
already.
lot of money. That sounds weird.
Oh, and so I know that you can't just throw money into a certain structure and sort of assume that it'll fix everything. But man, I'm sure he could be doing something more, right? This guy with money in his bank. But hey, you know, but So I mean, generally speaking, I mean, it's all relative, isn't it? We all speak in terms of in relative terms. So this country is deeply um, you know, I don't want to say divided, but it's got some deep-seated problems, I'd say, right, what to do with inequality and all that. But at the same time, you know, if you look at other countries that say that are less developed, I'm sure that people will still say that Chile is still, one of the most, if not the most developed of South America. So, I guess again, this just depends on how you see it. It depends on where you look, maybe.
Yeah, any
So,
country would inequality causes a lot of animosity, because like if you're struggling but you see like your neighbor has like a mansion and like they have nice
yeah,
cars and they're doing well, you know that something's up, and that's where all the unrest happens.
yeah, and I mean, it's a natural course of the capitalist system, right? Where you get the rich richer and poor, sort of stay poor or not get as rich as fast.
That's why Denmark
Yeah,
is like the happiest country. Everyone kind of just has enough. Like there's not that
yeah,
many rich people.
Yeah. But then the argument, the counter argument to that is that you obviously would impede, so to speak, getting rich or earning as much money or kind of being able to advance as fast as you would if you have the means, right? So yeah, proponents and those against any kind of system really. So yeah, but oh well, but
So
that's
so
how it
you
is.
you've been living in Chile for 8 months or so, and you spent most of the time inside indoors in the Airbnb, and I guess grocery stores once in a while. So what was the grocery store like? Because I guess that's the main place that you go to.
It's all right. I was one thing that's I guess interesting is that I don't see as many supermarkets with an actual like fish section, seafood sections. It's always those that just have
Dried
the butchery
pasta.
section. Um, but at the same time, I mean, apart from the supermarket, I was quite fortunate, like I said, to have lived in two, I guess, two opposing sides of you know of the spectrum, right? From really sort of middle class, just you know, kind of yeah, middle of the ground sort of neighborhood to, and of course a sort of an apartment and living situation, right? To a more like right now, a more sort of upper class, I'd say, comfortable apartment, in the center of the city. So it was an experience to kind of see, both sides, right? And but even then, having said that, like to just kind of analyze how people sort of lead their lives, how they react, how they behave, because that also kind of shocked me. And the analogy that my current landlord gave me was quite accurate, saying that actually it's kind of an island in itself if you think about it, right? Because to the east you have the Andes, the mountains range, right, that separates Chile from Argentina. To the west you have the Pacific, right? To the south you've got Antarctica, and to the north you've got the desert, right? The Atacama Desert. So in that sense, it kind of gives a certain, I guess, logical explanation to how Chileans are, for the most part, quite reserved, and that really surprised me a lot because I, had this impression of my students, right, who obviously, again, just a subset of the population here at large, so they were obviously a lot more open and you know, uh, I guess outward. But then when they came here, people, for Latinos, they are quite reserved, they don't, kind of, they're not as, openly sort of uh, talkative or they don't really warm up to you as quick. But so that also kind of surprised me, along with the whole, uh, inequalities. Um, that also was another side of the condition that really surprised me.
So you didn't meet any of these people that supposedly speak really quickly.
Oh no, so that is still true. So for that, in that respect, yeah, all of my expectations I think were not just met, but I think exceeded because yeah, they I don't know, man. I think I've even heard of people from Spain coming and saying how they have to get used to it because yeah, they speak not just quickly, but there's I think a sheer amount of slang that they use a lot more commonly than I'd say even in English or even in other languages. Like it's like so much a part of it of their language already, and then of course to do with the pronunciation of the phonetics. I think that I would actually liken to the French in Quebec and Canada, where it's just entirely different, And so, and then of course, then comes back again to the background, right? So apparently, yes, for the most part, like that. But then, obviously, if you're more educated, you would sort of speak more Spanish-like, let's say, in terms of standard Spanish, apparently, And so even that, like, if you watch TV here, for example, you get always all kinds of series talking about the same old thing, right? About richer classes and, the sort of more middle class, poorer classes, and then sort of the tensions when they come to sort of, mix and then, or date or get married or whatever. And then they mock each other for like, different sort of words and vocabulary that you use, I don't know if that happens in the States, to be honest, where, people like discriminate, and sort of have this categorizing nature and this classist sort of nature where you judge
So you
people
talked
for the
about
words that they
something pretty
use.
interesting there. Like on the Chilean news channels, they'll talk about like these class issues on the news.
Yeah, on news, yes, but yeah, I was talking more about the series, but just before TV series, right? They always say, this, I mean, have shows about the same old subject, right? But yeah, I mean, even on news, you always US have that sort of appear, and so coming back to the whole thing about series, yeah, I was quite intrigued by how like most of the series, if not almost all of them, actually, depict a nice, comfortable lifestyle, right? Which I guess maybe is the dream, the kind of goal that they want to work towards, like,
It's the
aspire
dream,
towards,
but it's
right?
not the reality, right?
Yeah. So it's oh, richer sort of like more upper class sort of lifestyles and people and all that.
Yeah, you don't see
Uh,
too many TV series in the United States where you just have like poor people because it's I don't know, like I guess people don't want to watch that, but I think the
yeah.
closest one was Malcolm in the Middle, which is a TV show I grew up with, where it was like a real like struggling family. Like now I can't even think of a show like that. Maybe Breaking Bad
Um,
because the guy had to end up selling drugs to to make ends meet.
yeah. So and again, like to pull from what my landlord here says as well, like he says that man, Chile's like even more neoliberal than the states. But I mean, I don't want to go and harp back on that again. But yeah, it's quite interesting to see, right? To kind of observe and
So
yeah.
wanted to ask: is the news channels in Chile funded by the government or is it private?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, generally speaking, almost really everything is is privatized here. So I would actually, to my best knowledge, say that they are private. Although it might depend on what channel, right, you're talking about. Um, so I know that they have like a group, right, where each of these TV stations, I think, would sort of come under. So I believe, if I have to say, I believe it's mostly private though. Uh, if I have
So
to,
they're funded by like commercials and stuff.
sorry.
So they're funded by commercials if they're private.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's the problem with American news too. Like it's like there's only one channel that's like neutral and it's funded by the government. It's PBS. Well, actually, it's not even funded by the government. It's just not funded by commercials. But
uh,
we want to entertain with our news, like, and that's why news becomes so divisive.
yeah. Sensationalized and yeah. I mean, speaking of privatization, like even for example, like you take healthcare for example, the same thing here. Like you have to get health insurance. Uh,
There's no
and
universal healthcare in Chile.
um, yeah, I think maybe in the worst, like the worst cases, but as far as I know, like, yeah, everyone has to have health insurance. So again, that just reminded me of how it was in the States, right? So
Yeah, like Obamacare, but for Chile.
yeah.
So
So
what have you been doing in your spare time? Because like the last 6 months have been weird for everybody in the world. Like
yeah,
I stayed home, 90% of the time now, more than that probably, just to go out for grocery stores and walk. I work from home too. But I live in my own house and I live in my own country. But you live in an Airbnb. So like, what have you been doing in the Airbnb
yeah.
for the
So
last time?
So from the start, like so yeah, like I told you, in total, it's probably like on lockdown for a good 5 months, right? So from the start, like I had these plans. I was gonna get our project here started, like pretty much just in a nutshell, to get try and get try and get volunteers from New Zealand to kind of go to different developing countries. One of which is Chile, right? To teach English and obviously um, come and contribute, and obviously learn more about these countries that I guess aren't as frequented, and last talked about. And so that obviously had to take its pause, for now. But in any case, I'll still, my project, immersing myself in the news, in all kinds of, series, not just from Chile, but from, I guess all around Latin America, right, to Spain, and reading the news every day and kind of just, keeping up with my goal, I guess that's always been to, to perfect my Spanish as much as I could, right? So, and really, I think from sort of the circumstances, I think I haven't really actually appreciated just being able to have these little innocent exchanges with people on the street, whenever I could. And obviously now it's more and more possible, right? So being able to just, explore this different places in town, um, now especially,
So
it's pretty
for
cool.
the first like 5 months while you were still in lockdown, you would study the South American or Chilean
Yeah,
news,
a lot of
and you
news, a lot of series, reading the paper, talking to obviously
Chilean
my
like
my
TV
land, my lab,
series, like comedy shows.
all kinds, really. Yeah, from what they had on TV to to obviously Netflix, right? That makes it easy. So getting deeper, learning about the history and culture through that as well. And obviously, I had a mate here who I think eventually we'll be able to go down and see before I leave country. So I was volunteering teaching her English every week. We have a little session, and then obviously sometimes he would chat to me, in Spanish. And then obviously I'm being lucky to not have been alone this whole time because through my different landlords I've been able to get a deeper insight and still practice and learn. And yeah, and so that was it. And of course, like with the amount of time and me being lucky again to I guess unofficially having taken sort of a year off or something, time off anyways from family sort of working, right? Like, it's given me a lot of time to reflect, to think, and also just to learn, man. There's so much stuff to learn out there with all kinds of documentaries and stuff to read up on. It's like, man, with the internet, I think it's really saved us and saved me a lot of senses, right? Because without that,
Yeah,
man,
seriously.
and the library not being accessible,
Can you
I don't know
imagine
what
if
it
you
would.
lived like 20 years ago and then the pandemic happened?
I think it'll probably just be books, huh? To be able to nourish the mind
Yeah, I would
and
probably read the Harry Potter series like 6 times. Something else to do.
yeah, right. It's printed press, yeah. And so there you go. And so I'll say, yeah. I mean, like just like for yourself as well, and for anyone around the world, it's been a change, I'd say, to what you normally expect in your livelihoods. But at the same time, I think that's just what sets us apart as a human race. Like we adapt, make the best of it, and keep going, right? So
So in the last month, you can finally start to explore Chile a little. You don't need a permit to go outside, and people were willing to talk to you, like strangers, even though you said like it's more of a reserve uh, demographic.
we try to test that out, and also like every day when I go out to explore, about for the past since mid August, right, when it was possible again. It's during weekdays only. And so next week though, guess what? Santiago Centro, so the central sort of neighborhood, is moving on in the opening up sort of phase, right? And so weekends are now going to be open to go out, and stuff is slowly opening up again. So anyways, yeah. So of course I'll just go out there, and I think I've been mostly talking to security guards, at parks, at the supermarkets,
I'm sure they see
and
the craziest
sometimes
stuff too.
yeah, I mean, I kind of try to, talk to people that are sort of there to, to talk, I guess, to people to answer their questions, right? And try my luck and see if they're actually willing to talk more and chat, I guess. And then a few times I just kind of ask questions to random people. I guess, like for example, I was in the supermarket and I stumbled upon this apparent specialty, paper, not pastry, artisanal sort of chocolate sort of candy that they had here, and so I just kind of asked this woman next to me who was looking at the same thing and just, asked her opinion, right? And so I try to like, yeah, practice just like that. But you're right though, at the end of the day, like they're still not as open. So the kind of like conversation still kind of ends before I would obviously like it to.
Well, people are just
and I
not
get that,
really talking to each other right now because like everyone has to wear a mask and it's scary
right?
to talk to each other.
I guess so, but funny enough, I think over here though, we have gotten more used to it than let's say maybe in the States. I don't know, because for like a few months, I've just kind of been expected to wear a mask anyway out there. So yeah, we still keep our distance and everything, but people can talk. But
So
yeah, you might be right
what
though.
is a typical conversation? How do you start a conversation with a security guard in Chile? Like, what's the first thing that you say
Oh,
to them?
I'm just like, yo, good afternoon. Excuse me, I have a little question, or like, can I just ask you something? Ask about, for example, when is the summit to Latin America's largest central park actually, which is right here in Santiago. The summit's not open yet, so I was asking so is it open yet? Oh, when do you think it's gonna open? No, no, no. Or like, in this park, there's even like, for example, a Japanese garden, and like I noticed that the water mill, was not working, and so I was like, what was wrong with it, and then things like that. Oh, then like, oh, apparently kids, climb up on top of it and broke it, not just once, twice, but three times, and so I'm like, oh wow, I'm like, oh, and so I'm like, man,
See, if I was a security guard at like a grocery store and this random Chinese guy just started talking to me, I would probably think he's trying to distract me while his friend robs the store
yeah.
or something.
So interesting enough, I think So I think you're kind of right. So it's more so in like it was more so in the parks that that sort of these conversations going, talking about if I was lucky, right, about more about sort of the country and sort of what's been going on, you know like even like I asked one person about like souvenirs to bring back. What was special about Chile? Apparently it's copper, the big copper mining industry.
That's a weird souvenir to bring home.
Oh, I mean, if you think about like crafts and stuff, but but yeah, but you're right though. Supermarket ones, I guess maybe because it's more of a danger to to people like stealing stuff. That's why they didn't really talk too much or not for long. But there was one though who, I think this probably happens to you as well. He tested out his Chinese on me. He goes ni hao. I'm like, all right, ni hao, and then he actually was interested in learning a few words. So there you go.
Yeah, I've never felt more Chinese than when I travel to a different country because that's when Chinese people just start talking to you because they're scared of the new country and they think I understand their language, but I really don't.
Yeah, that's funny actually. In the States, funny enough, of all places in the world, you're right though. In the States, it was a place with the least amount of. Well, I mean, in the countries where Asians are a minority, right? Yeah, where I would not actually get any kind of people kind of calling out in Chinese to me. Whereas if you go elsewhere, yeah, you get a lot more, right? Whether it be Europe or even down here. Um, yeah.
So what do you hope to achieve in your last month in Chile? Are you planning to go
And
in the mountains or like check out the desert, stuff like that?
so here's the thing, yeah. So from Monday onwards, like we're moving up in the phases, right? But at the same time as well, they announced that we'll be able to travel between regions just as long as your neighborhood as well as your destination's neighborhood is in the same phase or above, right? So I think I'll be able to go down south to see my mate finally. And apart from that, though, while I'm still here, unfortunately, there's not really too many places that are normally sort of touristy that you can go to because the nearest sort of beach town that's like I guess the second well I guess the place that's closest to Santiago that's famous. That they're still in phase one, still in quarantine, so you can't go there. And then second largest town, just down south a little bit from here, is also still on the quarantine. I guess the most touristy places, whether it be the desert, like you said, to down south, they're still, I guess not there yet. And of course, the most famous national park, which is where Patagonia is, right? Yeah, it's still not, again, still not up to our speed yet. So might just be all for next time. But as for now, I'm just gonna take my time to explore in depth, right? Pretty much, I think I've walked pretty much almost every neighborhood here in central Santiago, and seeing as restaurants can now open up, right? It'd be great to actually go, and then learn about their cuisine and I guess talk to more people in that sense.
So
Um,
so what do you think is like a common misconception about South America and Chile that people think about? Like I think some people have like this idea that it's not as developed as Western countries. Do you feel like that's false?
no, that's not me. It's still fairly accurate. I mean, it's still a country that's still developing. Although at one of the fastest speeds, I mean, if you talk about Brazil, for example, um, what they come under the BRICS nations, right? Like the high, like most, I think, the fastest like growing, economies out there, the emerging economies. Sorry. Um, but in terms of South America, yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what kind of stereotypes you're talking about. If some people would say that, oh, that it's all still like, super underdeveloped, I guess they might be right, they still be wrong, and depending on where they go, right? So, I think one of the biggest misconceptions probably would be that, I don't know, that yeah, that they still largely behind, but when in the case of I think most developing countries in the world, no man, they actually are getting up, the speed that they are definitely developing at a really really fast rate. So yeah, so you'd be surprised on what you can find over here in terms of I guess the modern sort of comforts that we would be accustomed to see. Although yes, in smaller pockets, small amounts, but it definitely is growing. So yeah.
So
So
what do you see in the future of South America and Chile? Like just more of the comforts that Western countries are used to spread out to everybody in let's say Santiago or Chile?
yes, I guess in that sense, when you talk about comforts, probably implying
Like
development, right?
infrastructure,
Party
like internet.
yes, access, right? To obviously quality education and all that. That's what I was hoping for our project. But yeah, that's definitely what I hope for, right? And just to obviously see more of more of a kind of contact right between them and countries outside of South America, because it's still true that they're still quite oh, I would say that they're sheltered. It's just that not as many people have come uh to properly sort of um you know yes settle or make a mark and exchange as much. Because while it's true that there are quite a few there are quite a few visible foreign restaurants here, for example, like there are quite a few Indian, Korean, Taiwanese, even Chinese, definitely everywhere, restaurants and all that. I don't have this impression that there's much of a sort of exchange going on though. It's just kind of more for purely commercial purposes that they've come here. So I can see sort of more of a two-way sort of contact and you know mingling and integration. I think between those come and settle and the Chileans here, right? And so of course on the same I guess in the same vein, I think I like to see more South Americans also kind of taking an interest to the outside world, and so hopefully through that, like I guess jointly prop us both up and lead us to to better opportunities, I guess.
So the future of South America is a more transparent one, uh, where people step outside of South America and explore the world, and more people come into South America and
It's
explore what it has to
definitely the
offer.
latter that I like. Yeah, definitely the latter that I like to see more of, because it's true that I mean you have plenty of South Americans already living abroad and escaping their own you know I guess from misery to just unfeasible conditions or just going for better opportunities. You get that. I mean, you look at the States, for example, right? And especially current the past few years till now, it's been mostly a lot of Venezuelans as well, right? That you find everywhere, escaping the situation. That's unfortunate back home, but at the same time, I like to see more of the other way, of us coming taking an interest, right, to South America, because again, man, as a continent, it is you know growing at
Yeah,
a rapid rate, and
I
tons
think
of
I'm a
tons of tons of
supporter of like open borders. Like making it easier to live in other countries, because I'm sure if there were more open borders, people from Western countries might come to live in like Santiago or other major South American cities, because not only is it a cheaper cost of living, but there could be a lot of business opportunities there.
definitely. And you already see actually a few sort of to some extent that happening. I apparently know of Medellin in Colombia that is actually like has grown and earned its little reputation of being like the new sort of tech like was it the tech sort of hub or something, where a lot of people, especially from the States as well, have come there to enjoy a cheap cost of living, but also a fairly you know comfortable doable sort of surroundings as well, environment. And so then yeah, over there they have been able to set up base there and develop their own projects, right? So and there I think many of these places that are popping up all over the world in South America and in Asia. And so I hope to see more of that. And obviously if you're able to benefit the place that you're living in as well, that you've moved to, and all the better, right? And that, yeah, I can only just hope for more of that, right?
I
More
think this is
investment,
like
more.
this summarizes the theme of our show, where like you should be able to travel the world more, because you never know what opportunities will come.
Yeah, they essentially would carve your life for you, man. At the same time, when you kind of just open yourself up to these opportunities, they kind of just, it might sound cliche, but they they end up coming to you, and and yeah, so I think it's just about a matter of deciding where, with the means that you have, right, where you'd like to invest your time and money in, right, and therefore, hopefully, with that, yeah, there'll be more more exchange, right. Um, and so, I mean, seeing as this is the last episode, I gotta say it was thanks to you, by the way, right? With with you getting me involved in Rift C back then and Terra now, that the whole French story actually kind of made more sense and kind of continued, because I remember I think I joined you guys at the start, right? After my first few months and first 3 months, in France, and then you guys came knocking on my door, and well, you did, and then so it's kind of things like that, like that kind of then brought me back because it made more sense, right, to actually go forward with my French personally as well as professionally. So you know,
So what do you see, since this is the last episode? What do you see in the future of your travels?
oh, what do I see? Honestly, I'm gonna tell you this now. So I've had this goal in mind, right, to perfect those languages that I've learned. Like obviously French took the front seat, but then Spanish obviously was always there, and then take time as well. Use those opportunities to then, go and explore and learn about different countries and life there and the people and the cultures. But I want to say that all my life, I don't know if you've had that. There's just been this voice, right, that's just been telling me, man, you should go back and find your roots. You should you should stop being a banana. Go to China. And I've had relatives and family tell me that as well. Like hey, because they obviously are more connected to more sort of closer to sort of what's happening in China and what's how it's developed and all that throughout the years. And they've always said you guys in in your Western culture and you're consuming Western media, don't underestimate China, man. That's where it's at. You should be focusing on China next. You should really go there and properly learn your Mandarin. So
Dude,
I
don't
think for
waste your
me
time.
that,
Just watch the newest Mulan. He'll teach you everything you need to know.
see, I thought that was enough, but but even then, Mulan, man, we watched it in English, man. Fuck. But apparently it's a new one now, so a new Chinese Mulan. But anyways, so yeah, I think that's probably honestly my next step. But in later on, I really hope to be able to reconcile all of this, all these years of lessons, and obviously with my native languages to be able to contribute as much as I can to to my Kiwi foreign affairs, to New Zealand's foreign affairs. I don't know how, where, but I think I might be a good candidate, so I'll try my luck there. But
So,
that's later on after.
yeah, what we'll
Hmm?
plan to do is in 10 years or so, we'll come up with new episodes of Jono Lived There. But today will be the season finale. And on that note, it's time to end the show. So, Jonathan, thank you for letting us interview you for these last 6 episodes. It's been really fun. And we hope
Thank you.
to talk about your future travels. And the next time we do this series, season 2 will happen in 2035 or something, and we'll have 6 new episodes by then, where we'll talk about 6 new countries, right?
Well, that would have Joseph live there, so you never know, right? So thanks to you, bro. It's been fun, and it's always a privilege and pleasure when I talk to you. So yeah,
All right, thank you,
it's
Jonathan,
great.
and thank you for all our listeners, and we'll see you next time.